Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Psychonaut Sessions. I am your host, Dingy Muller, and today I am sitting with the one and only, the Grand Poobah of indie comics himself, Alexander Turbin.
Grand Poobah, I appreciate that. I don't think I warrant that quite yet. I'm working towards it, but I'm doing great on this snowy, cold morning, or afternoon rather. So, where are you from again? I forget. I'm in Bangor, Maine.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you are cold.
yeah. It's been warm the last few days. It's been like 30 degrees or so, but like last week we had -5, and 7, stuff like that, and that's a little frigid.
It was warm here in Kansas City last week, and we're talking like 60s, 70s. I can't,
my
when you
gosh.
say warm, I wish for it. I love, like, Maine weather is like my kind of weather, so I would love to be in that situation for sure.
Well, it's got its ups and downs. Shoveling snow sucks.
Yeah, that's true. That's what kids are for, Alex.
Yeah, right.
Well, let's kind of get into things. So we were talking a little bit before we started recording. I found you through the Power Comics channel, and we can get into that in a little bit. And anybody who's watched my channel knows I've talked about it a lot. But you're one of those creators that was just not on the map for me, before that.
For anybody ever.
And so that was the great thing about that channel, is it brought all these people to the forefront that otherwise nobody would have heard about, which I love. Right in my wheelhouse. So let's kind of get into, you're from Maine, but what's kind of your specific origin story in terms of getting into comics or art, etc.?
I would say my origin, and I've gotten into this on my channel quite a bit, and a lot of the reason why people like comic books, why people like superheroes, why people like certain things, and I've talked about how so many comic book fans and creators are social outcasts and whatnot. I don't know if that's how you feel as well, but I've met so many people, and I mean, it's just, you have divorced parents or whatever reason why you feel like you're outcast or whatever is because it becomes your kind of your identity, and then you can find comic books, and it's that I've kind of thought about this quite a bit, where you have this routine every month. You're stepping into the lives, or at least it used to be, not so much anymore because they keep rebooting and starting over with number ones and all this stuff. But when I was in junior high and high school, and whatever personal lives I was having, whatever personal issues or problems or whatever, I could step into the life of the X-Men and lived through them vicariously. And, they were a consistent every month, whatever it was, you could, block out your problems and join the comic book realm. And then, of course, if you become a creator, then you branch out into not just this superhero power fantasy, which I guess I've had. Anybody that denies that they have it is just, denying that. But then as a creator, you see more things. My mind was it was opened up by Conan and the X-Men and Todd McFarlane and all this stuff that was going on during the 80s. 86 in particular. I have to say 86 is the greatest year in comic books. But then I read something like The Watchmen, and I'm like, this is an art form that is transcendental. It's not just this throwaway garbage, medium. This is something really fantastic. And I often say that what I try to do is I try to get that. I don't know if you've ever had this, but when you're reading a comic book like The Watchmen, which I got this, every time I read it pretty much, where the hairs on my arms start to, prickle up. It's like when you hear the song and you just out of nowhere, the back, it's like a cold wind around your back or something like that. And it's just it's the drama and I don't know what it is, the magic of creating, I guess. And that's really what I try to create, and whether I'm successful or not is, somebody else's, purview. But that's what I'm trying to do, I guess. create some sort of emotional thing.
Yeah, no, for real. I'm glad that you kind of touched on, 1986 in general, because there was something about that particular year, I think, both in mainstream and in the independent community, that just really started. I felt like the forum was getting pushed into that direction that was very cinematic, right? Like when you go to a movie or something, you're like, oh, and you're on the edge of your seat. The comics just got the storytelling and art, and I think we don't credit enough the writing, the level of writing leveled up. Like people like Frank Miller and Alan Moore push things to this whole other level, that it was much more than just a bunch of like cool looking pictures. It was something that would like get deep inside of you, and even independent creators were kind of going in that direction as well, I think. So
oh yeah, definitely. Like another turning point for me was when I went to New York City with my dad, and he was doing business or whatever, and he dropped me off at Forbidden Planet, which is like this huge comic book store at the time. I guess it's still going on now, but seeing like all of the different indie stuff, like that was when, I don't think that was when I was introduced to Grendel and Mage and all that stuff. But it's, just this whole indie stuff that it's kind of like you have epiphanies along the way of your creation, your creating, world or whatever, where you first start in and you're like, or this is for me anyway, and you see this Marvel and DC stuff and you're like, oh, that's really cool. I'd really love to do this cosmic story or this superhero story. And then you see something that's independent, like a Yummy Fur or a Hate, Peter Baggy stuff. And you're like, this is funny. I can do funny. I can do, and then you see like I was saying, Yummy Fur, where he talks about all of this personal, things that are going on in his life. And you're like, I could write and talk about myself and draw about myself. What is the possibilities are truly endless in comic books.
Yeah. I always am like hitting on this as well, is you're tagging into the concept of genre versus medium. When people normally think about comics, they think about like a genre of superheroes and stuff, and it's not that. Comics is a medium of art, and there's so many different ways of being able to express it, from like Yummy Fur and Art Spiegelman and others, of just like finding these experimental ways of being able to exercise image and text, and the juxtaposition of how those two things can work together and how they clash. And it's just, the opportunities are absolutely endless, and it's all like almost budget free. Like all you need is just a pencil and piece of paper. You don't need Hollywood style budgets.
Right. I mean? Yeah, I get so angry when people say, oh, this movie is very comic booky. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. It's like this book is really movie-y, it's like you're saying, it's a medium, it's not a genre. You could say this movie is very superhero-y, but you can't say it's comic booky, because you've got as many genres in comics as you do movies or any other thing. So the two just don't mix, I guess, like that. For me, I just get angry.
I think that's like very telling in terms of something when you brought up Watchmen, right? Watchmen is a type of book that there's so much more than just even a story and art, because it is even very dependent upon the exact color palette that was used. The story is very dependent on the precise layout of the panels in order for it to actually work as it did. It's like multi-layered in that context. So and I'm not saying the film was necessarily like horrible. The film was fine, I guess. It was
okay. It was good.
Yeah, but it wasn't Watchmen. Watchmen isn't the plot of these superheroes. It is the entirely way in which that text was delivered.
Right.
Is what makes Watchmen. So very interesting stuff. So when did you think that, like, you like, were you young or were you older when you felt like, I can start doing this myself? I'm not just a reader and a consumer.
Well, I've always, and I was just thinking about this the other day too. Most artists, I think, or a lot of artists, they're kind of pigeonholed into being artists from a young age, whether it's, arts and crafts or whatever. They kind of, at least, when I was growing up, I'm 55 or something like that. you were broken up in your classrooms as like, oh, that's the smart kids, that's the math kids, that's the sports kids, and that's the art kids. And once you get this identity as being one of the art kids, then it's not bad necessarily. It's just, it kind of pigeonholes you into a certain thing. So I was always like the artsy kid, whether it was, my parents or teachers or whatever, just pigeonholing me into that thing, which wasn't bad. But then, so I always had that background of doing that kind of thing. So when I discovered comic books, and I really recognize X-Men 199 as my go-to, as when I decided that I was going to try to do this kind of thing. Really, almost everything that I get into, I want to, delve into deeply. Music's the only thing that I've really kind of sucked at. I've never been able to do music. But if I like hockey, then I'm going to go play hockey. If I'm going to, whatever it is. But comic books, but that automatically became pretty much my life's passion. As soon as I was reading those X-Men comic books, I love to have this story. I love to say this story of how 199 was the key issue Uncanny X-Men that I kind of attached myself to. But 198 was this Barry Windsor Smith love hate? No, life death. And I picked it up. I remember this very specifically at like age 14 or whatever. I picked it up, looked at it, didn't like it, and put it back. I remember that very specifically. And then I was like, well, maybe I'll check out the next issue. So then I do, and I'm like, oh, this is amazing. But little did I realize that Barry Windsor Smith is one of the greatest artists of all time. And I just, was so fantastic. It just, my brain could not understand what he was doing. And that also is part of growing as an artist, is realizing that other people are doing other things. It's like, Yummy Fur, you look at that and you're like, maybe, if you're into Marvel and DC stuff, you look at it and you're like, oh, that's just stick figures, or that's just, elongated faces or whatever. But then you read it and you're like, this totally makes sense and it blows me away. And it's, once you get it, then you get it,
Yeah.
So,
yeah, man, those early Barry Windsor Smith issues were mind blowing. And that, like, you're right. That just, I don't think people got it right away because he was so unconventional with the type of artwork that was being displayed beforehand. It's just like, what is happening here? And just one of those like people that really pushed the threshold. My introduction to him was the Marvel Comics Presents Weapon X stuff.
Gotta love those.
Yeah. And at first I was just like, I don't get what, but it was, but I kept getting drawn back to it over and over and over again. And I mean, that's why, because it's fine art, if you ask me.
It is fine art. I've had the argument. I had this argument actually when I went to Kubert's. Every day we would argue about this. I'm like, comic books is a fine art, and then they'd be back and forth. No, it's not. It's this commercialization, blah blah blah. And I'm like, no. If you put your heart and soul into it, then it's a fine art. So it's a great discussion.
So you mentioned Kubert, so I was going to get into that. Have you had any formal training or whatnot, and what was your pathway into it? So
just one year at Kubert's. I came home because the best and worst reason, a girl. So I came home thinking that I could do indie comics and make a living at indie comics and, become rich and famous indie comic creator. Little did I know that you couldn't really. I think most of the successful people that do indie comics are very good at networking, and they are in places where they can network, whether it's going to conventions or whatever. But I also I don't seem it now, but I'm very shy. Like, I have a real hard time in conventions, just going up to talk to people, showing people my art or, whatever. And that's a great skill set. So that's also part of the reason why some of the more successful comic artists actually become successful, I think, anyway.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I was actually having a conversation with my, one of the people that I usually collaborate with, and a close friend of mine, Aaron Conway. He's a writer. And yesterday, and we were talking about how probably 75% of the success is being able to be out there and talk to people and network, and that's that's how you do it. It's like you can be talented to the end of your days, but if you're not able to do that level of hustle, like your work is likely to stay on mom's refrigerator.
Or at least having some way to get your work into a bigger, broader audience. It's like, I think it's like it's almost a switch, but it's not. It's like this grind. You keep grinding and grinding and grinding and doing your stuff, doing your work, and then you might hit a tipping point. I think it's actually several tipping points. And I think cartoonist Kayfabe would said this several times too, where they were like Marvel and DC artists as well, but they were like, you don't get your first Marvel job and then you're automatically, big deal. It takes multiple, big deals jobs in order to do something. And then I think some of it is, like you said, networking. And but I was also thinking about this. The amount of content that you produce, not so much different stuff, but you get it out there to as many people as you can. Like, say you have 100 people see your stuff, and then 10 people like it, and then only one person buys it. So then you got to get it to 1,000 people. So then 100 people like your stuff, and then 10 people buy it. So, you really just have to get out there, and that's what I'm trying to do anyway. Get out there and show it to as many people as I can. And if they love it, then great. If they don't, then that's great too. But at least they've seen it,
Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned this sort of debate that happened at the Kubert School between commercial and fine art. It's funny because I originally went to just like a regular college, like a regular art school. But my passion was comics.
Where did you go?
It's Drury University in Springfield, Missouri, and they had a fine arts school there that was actually attached to an architecture school. So they were very much about fine art and design, and so my work had like no place there. So it was it was a constant struggle of trying to, I would try to learn how they taught, but then I would try to do, for projects, I would try to incorporate what I learned into what I love and like how I like to present, which is through sequential art and stories and illustration. And that argument, just like, that's cartooning and that's illustration. That's not art. There's art and then there's illustration.
Right.
What?
Yeah.
I thought art was like the broad umbrella term, and then you have all these categories, but they were and so it was a very hard experience for me, and it burned me for a while. I stepped away from doing art for quite a few years because it was just like, it was so frustrating.
There's a lot of gatekeeping in art, and I mean, when you've got people spending millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars on paintings and stuff like that, you're going to have something like that. But then to have creators have a gatekeeping thought about them, which I think a lot of that comes out of jealousy and or just their own narrow-minded views of stuff. But just having comics as a fine art, just having comics as an art form. Like, I remember being in junior high or whatever and reading comics, and people would be like, shh, comic books, they're stupid, they're for kids, you're an idiot for reading them or whatever. And I was always like, I wasn't the one that was like, oh, okay, whatever, I'll just sit here, read my comic book, and you just leave me alone or whatever. I'm like, no, this is an awesome art form. You should check it out too. So, I understand the people that are more, mousy, and they get berated for loving their art or whatever. And then they kind of just squirrel away into their hole and they create their art. And some of the best art is done that way. But I really think, I think Batman, the first Batman movie with Michael Keaton, was a huge breakthrough, because that was the year that people were like, oh, you do comic books like the Batman movie that's coming out, because it was such a huge success, and people were finally like, hey, that's really cool. And so, that's what I think you're doing.
Yeah, that certainly blew my mind when that came out. So were you just like since then still always doing indie comics, or did you have a period where you just kind of stopped and or like done it sparingly? Because like you're really killing it right now. Like,
well, thank you. But when I went to Kubert's, I wanted to be a penciler, because I don't think that there was a comic book store. There wasn't a comic book store in my, the last 2 years, or 1 or 2 years of my junior, senior year, we finally got a comic book store, and that, opened up a whole new thing. But I still had the mindset that there were pencilers and there were inkers and there were, you had your set role in comics for Marvel or DC, and you didn't really think about, going into these other areas. It really wasn't until Kubert's that I went to these other comic book stores and saw so many other indie comics, being successful. And this was actually before the bust too. So I went into Kubert's wanting to be a penciler, and I even, on my interview with Joe Kubert, he met everybody that wanted to be part of the school. I was like, I want to be Mobius. I really want to be Mobius. I don't want to be Jim Davis of Garfield. I don't want that. And he looks me square in the eye and he says, I know Mobius and I know Jim Davis both personally, and Mobius wishes he could be as good as Jim Davis. So really going to Kubert's wasn't so much, I learned how to do a lot of stuff, obviously, but getting a real appreciation for different kinds of comic books was really one of the biggest things that I got out of it.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. That's cool.
It was very cool.
Yeah, I'll bet. So I found you on the Power Comics YouTube channel, which was a channel that had a brief stint for a couple of years that highlighted the types of comics that you would never have seen on a comic book shelf or a grocery store rack. Just like that, you're going through dollar bins, maybe even a flea market, and you find something that maybe had a print run of 1,000, and
if they're lucky,
and just very indie, very small press. Basically, a lot of times one person doing the whole book, right? It's just that they're a full-on creator, and they were very focused on stuff that came out in the 80s specifically, I think, but they kind of branched out the years a little bit in the later days. Their channel is no longer going, it seems, but a community of us kind of formed around that because they were hitting on the types of books that many of us love. It draws this kind of primal energy out of us of I am that person, right? Or I know that the energy of those kinds of books are way more real because they're not an assembly line of creators. It's just one person and their vision. And so they highlighted a book that you worked on, Mutandis.
Mutandis is my claim to fame, pretty much, which for good or ill. There's a lot to unpack with Mutandis. I did it with 2 other guys, and we got together.
I see the X-Men influences.
Yeah, definitely. The first interview that I did with the Power Comics, we were definitely talking about the X-Men and how nothing ever happened in the X-Men, and I loved that part. I first came across Power Comics because I got a message on Facebook from somebody saying, "Did you do the Mutandis comics?" And I was like, "This is Marvel. They want to buy Mutandis. This is it. This is jackpot. I won the lottery." But then we were talking about it, and I got in contact, or I was looking at I Googled the guy, and I Googled Power Comics, and on all this stuff. They had 20 or 30 shows before that. So I send them. I looked at the video. They had already gone over Mutandis, and I looked at the video for a couple minutes. I didn't have time to watch the whole thing. So I sent them a message. I think it's still on one of their channels. I'm like, thanks for looking at my book. If you better have said nice things about it and not made fun of it, or I'm going to come burn your house down. So, because I thought it was, I thought it was people that like B movies, and they were going to make fun of it the whole time. Like, what's that show where the robot and the guy watch old movies? Remember on
Mystery
Sci-Fi?
Science Theater,
Mystery Science, yeah, 3000, where they just make fun of it and they pan it. And I wasn't going to have any of that. I was going to be like, well, if they're going to just make fun of it and stuff, then I'm going to, be angry at them. Which, of course, I was joking, but. Then I watched the rest of the video, and they actually had a deep appreciation for it. And they weren't just like, these meatheads don't know how to draw. Why do they do that? They're not Marvel or DC. Why are they even trying? They weren't like that at all. They had a true appreciation for what we were trying to do. And I loved that. And the fact that I got so many of these people, because there were so many people that did enjoy Mutandis that I had no idea that I was just blown away. And at the time, I had given up comic books, because I will never give up comics. I just love the medium so much. But I was actually learning how to 3D animate. And I had made some, not so much animation, but 3D creating and stuff. I was doing stuff with a Blender, and I had a 3D printer, and I was doing all these 3D printing stuff. So I was like, I'll do because I'm also a sculptor. So I was like, I'll do this 3D, animation, whatever. I'll learn this and always do comic books. I'll go back and do maybe a page a month or a page every couple months or whatever. But then I got into the Power Comics, and then, had an interview with them, and I was just like, hey, this is great. I can use this as a springboard and try to do something bigger and better.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like that you, like, since that time, like, you've kind of exploded, because your YouTube channel launched, like, the random access and other, like, you just seem to be producing so much work. It's insane.
Yeah. I got to the point where I was like, the only way I'm going to attain my goals, which I don't know what those are anymore. I've often say, what is success for a comic book artist or any kind of artist? If you sell 1,000 comics, is that success? Because that's certainly a lot of comic books. If you sell 20,000 comics, is that success? But so I've kind of broken down what I feel like success is. And then I was thinking, my real success would be if somebody came up to me and said, you're my favorite artist. But I think that's kind of, not really right either. I think just getting it out there, creating what you enjoy, and if people enjoy it, then that's kind of a success. And, you just do what you can do, I guess. Yeah. So that's how I'm trying to do it.
Yeah. I was thinking about this, actually the past few months of, what do I, because I completed a crowdfunder campaign, and in my mind, like, what does that mean as success for me? Because I've already made the book, right?
Yeah.
And I don't need to make a certain amount of money. I have a day job, but I do want people to read it. And so I was kind of thinking to myself, like, success is, I got to be enjoying it, because if it's not bringing me joy, then why am I even doing it? But then I just want some level of readership. It can be minimal. It would be great if it was a ton of people, but I just want somebody to consume it. I like to hear feedback. I like to know that people enjoyed it, or they didn't, or they have critiques. Like, that kind of exchange creates this, like, community for me, and that's where I'm kind of, like, landing. I don't know where you're at on that, but
I'm totally the same way. It's like, whenever I sell a comic book, and we can talk about the Kickstarters in a second, because that's a whole nother thing, Kickstarter. But whenever I sell a comic book on my website, I get this high. It's like a real joy that somebody's laying out their hard-earned money for my comic books. I'm like, that's just the biggest thing ever. But then, as an artist, I think almost every artist, you go like a month or a couple months not selling anything, nobody looking at your stuff, and you're like, this is the end of the world. This is the worst thing ever. I'm such a loser. And that ties in with the Kickstarter. I don't know if you're like this. Like, I'm in the midst of the Kickstarter now. I'm like 10 days in or 11 days in. The first couple days, I was like, I think I'd had 2 or 3 or 4 backers or whatever. And even then, I was like, man, what if I don't make my quota or whatever it's called? People are just they hate me. They hate my art. I'm such a big loser, you know? And it's like a roller coaster, because then I look every day, oh, I got a backer. Then I'm awesome, you know, I'm doing great. And then go a day, don't get a backer. I'm like, oh, I'm a loser again. So it's such a roller coaster of emotions that, you know.
And I think the reason why that is, because I mean, we talk about this as artists a lot, and you know, I'm sure people on, you know, listening or watching on YouTube have like heard
everybody
this conversation.
Has it. Yeah.
But I think that's because it's one of those professions or, you know, skills in which you're working so hard at something for so long by yourself that then when it's time to put it out and then it's not received, it's like, it's crushing, because you put a lot of time, even if you enjoy it, you know, somebody's like a carpenter, they're making something that is normally going to get used or something, you know, a lot of things that people put time into, they're kind of seeing an immediate return. And I've heard, I think some people have in their minds too, that I've heard this expression a lot. Well, and I've heard this with some writers as well, because I'm a writer too, of like, well, it's good to just kind of do it for yourself. Like you're writing or you're doing artwork for yourself. And I was like, but writing, art, those kinds of things are a skill that requires an audience. So like to say that you're doing it just for yourself, I think that's like really only half the picture. I think it requires somebody consuming it, reading it, or absorbing it in some way. That's part of like what makes it whole, really. Anybody that, and so many, almost every artist, comic book artist especially, that hasn't attained any kind of success, that's their very first go-to. Or even if they haven't, if they're just starting out and they, you know, are afraid that they won't be successful, that is their go-to. I'm going to do this just for myself, and I don't care what anybody else thinks. And that's a fine. You're protecting yourself. You're protecting, you know, your emotions and your conscience or whatever it is. You're protecting yourself, and that's perfectly fine. Everybody does it. I've done it. You know, but at a certain point, you have to be like, I want to get this to as many people as I can, because I want to, that's what I want. You know, I want to be successful. You know, if it doesn't happen, then, you know, that sucks and it's horrible, but you know, you have to be like, I want to do this. Yeah. You know, just like keep going with that drive.
Well,
let's dive into it. So one of the things I wanted you to be able to do was to highlight and promote your latest Kickstarter. I contributed it to the other day. We're looking at Morgrim, and I'll probably show an image on the screen too, or unless you have something you want to hold up real quick. But Morgrim, that is awesome.
Which this is the poster that some of the backers will get at a certain tier. Which, you know, I'm horrible at Kickstarter. This is my second Kickstarter, and they changed it a little bit. Like they were doing these tiers, and then adding a something or other. I always thought it was just, you know, you have tiers, and if they you know, donate so much money, then they get another tier into a higher tier. But then there's stretch goals, like the stretch goals and the tiers and all that stuff really confused me. So I'm like, what the heck? So I messed it all up. So anyway, most people, if they get the comic book, will also get the poster, which is the cover for it.
That's awesome. That's
a Virgin cover.
Work.
Yeah, thank
absolutely
you.
Beautiful work. So tell us a little bit about Morgrim. What's your sell? What's your?
I do a comic book with a bunch of other guys, Crom Anthology with Jamie Barrows, and also Kurt does some other stuff with the Crom. So Crom is like kind of a thing a lot of artists do. Have you done any Crom stuff? Are you a sword and sorcery guy?
I'm a huge sword and sorcery guy, but I haven't done any Crom stuff. But sign me up, man! Like I would love to contribute.
Yeah, it's a public domain character that I don't know how long it's been public domain, but some people just latched onto it. I just learned about it like, you know, right before I did the Jamie Barrows one. I was like, Crom, the god from Conan.
Right, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
So I did a little bit of research. There's like a website. He was a blonde-haired, basically Conan character, and he's, like I said, he's public domain. So there's a bunch of artists that get together and Kurt Bruegel, like I said, he does his own Crom anthology, and he runs the Crom website, which is where you can get all of this stuff back from the 40s. I think it was either 40s or 50s where it came out originally. And so I was working on that, and I'm like, oh, this is really cool. I'm really having fun. It's like doing Conan, only not, having the hassle of trying to, get through all that stuff. So I was really having fun. But then I was like, man, I really kind of wish I'd have my own character that I could just do on my own and people would recognize and stuff. And so I was like, oh, well, I'll just do a Conan ripoff, Crom ripoff kind of thing. And then I was thinking even more, because I was also thinking of Crawl, the movie Crawl.
Yes.
Everybody loves Crawl.
One of the best movies ever.
It's one of the best movies. And of course, who's your favorite character, or one of your favorite characters? The Cyclops. Obviously, he dies. Spoiler alert. So he's awesome. And so I was like, maybe I'll make him a Cyclops. So I made him the Cyclops, which was a really hard decision, because you have this, which I made a little bust here, and this will be a one of the tiers. If it gets funded to $500, which I'm at $400 now, then everybody will get one of these. I have to make a caveat for that. I can't ship these internationally; they're just a little too heavy. But so if I get to if I make that to $500, then everybody will get it, just so I'll have the money to buy the resin to make them and everything. But so it was a really hard decision, because Cyclopses are not good looking. They're not handsome like, Conan or Arnold or whatever. So it was really kind of a hard decision to make, to go into that, different, thing. But once I did, I never looked back, and I just feverishly, I did like my first issue. I think I penciled it in a month, I penciled in ink, which is kind of a lot for an indie creator, I think.
That's really cool, man. That's really impressive. That's awesome. So, I think Cyclopses are cool.
They're very cool. They're just not good looking. Yeah.
So do you think Morgrim is going to be, a steady series? I mean, you're already going to be producing a lot with Random Access. It's something you want to keep going with?
Yep, definitely. It's a in the book. I have a whole map made out, and it actually story started out. I did a daily strip. Which, have you ever done daily strip?
No, I haven't.
I wholeheartedly recommend it to any comic book artist. It's a whole skill set. It's a whole another emotional roller coaster, but there's a lot you can learn from it. But I did this daily strip that I put on Instagram called The People of Vandor, and it was basically like everything in all of my stories. They're all in the same universe. Like Mutandis is in the same universe as Cyrene, which is a character from Random Access, and Queller. And so I have like these dozens, if not hundreds of characters. They're all in the same universe, and they're just different timelines. And so I wanted the Sword and Sorcery universe originally with the People of Vandor. And so I went with that for like a 2 or 3 months or something like that, until, you just get burnt out. I mean, it's just, doing something like that every day is very taxing. But then, so I wanted it to, Morgrim rather, to kind of be in the same universe as People of Vandor. So I was just kind of thinking of how they can be that way. And so I just created Morgrim. He takes place actually 100 years before the People of Vandor storyline that I actually reprinted it in Random Access. But you can check it out all on my Instagram too. But then one of the biggest things for Morgrim was that I wanted, because when you look at Conan, there's kind of the arc of, young Conan, middle-aged Conan, Conan the King, which is, it really kind of wraps up his whole storyline. I kind of wish there was a death of Conan. Has there ever been a death of Conan?
Not that I know of.
No, I kind of wish there was. But I wanted there to be like some sort of enclosed storyline where I would have, I could branch out and do every kind of Morgrim story that I wanted to, but I would have this self-contained story that was really basically his life story. And so I got this idea because I'm also at the same time in Random Access working on this thing where it's the return of the old gods, because I'm a huge H.P. Lovecraft fan, huge Robert E. Howard fan, obviously. Yeah. And I love the old gods and all of this, Cthulhu and all this stuff. So I was like, I really want to have that kind of vibe too. So I have the Return of the Old Gods, which is going to take place in 2026 is where I'm going to work on that. So I'm like, well, if the Return of the Old Gods, where did they go originally? So I'm going to have Morgrim. The world of Morgrim is very much like, what the heck's that movie? Clash of the Titans, the original Clash of Titans, where the gods are super integral to the part and integral to the movie, but also they're part of everyday life. The gods come down and interact with people all the time, and that's what Morgrim is. Only all of the gods are bad. They're all like, even the good ones, they're like, I'm going to screw you up. I don't care. I'm just going to do whatever I want to because I'm a god. I don't care. So he kind of gets fed up with that. And the story is really basically how he deals with, because he's a Cyclops, he's not a race of Cyclops. He's just an aberration. He's a freak. And so he has a harsh life because of that. And so I really wanted this whole H.P. Lovecraft kind of vibe. And I have these old gods. And so it's his journey to kind of lock away the old gods.
Sweet. Dude, oh my gosh, dude,
huge.
I can't wait.
It's a huge storyline.
That sounds awesome. So it looks like you've surpassed your goal already.
Yeah, yep.
So when are you wanting to wrap up the campaign and get books out?
30 days. It's on its 10th day or something like that. So whenever I'm starting to do the sketches and all of the extra goodies for people, probably starting today, because I finished the latest Random Access coloring it. So because I break it down into when I'm working on things, like Random Access is my main priority. So I give myself like 15 days to do whatever it is I'm going to do for Random Access. And then the next 15 days I work on, Morgrim or whatever it is, the 1900s horror I have coming out sometime soon. So yeah, that's just what I'm working on.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, if you don't mind, can you kind of, I'll put your link tree and other stuff in Kickstarter in the description, of course, but you want to throw out promos out there for where people can find you and find your work?
Well, one of the things, I do have this website called Comics Creators Marketplace, where I sell other comic creators, indie comic creator stuff, where you'll find all kinds of other fantastic artists, because I love to promote other artists as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, well, and you also got a YouTube channel, you got a Patreon.
Yep.
So all of that will be in the link tree. So not only do you have Morgrim, but like you said, you also have Random Access that you're doing regularly as well. And you're on issue what at this point? I mean, you've been doing Random Access for a while.
Yeah, it's actually volume 2. I'm at 39. This month is 39, and I had like 12 issues before in volume 1. But I have this thing that I'll mention it here, where I'm going to try to get as many people that I can to join it. For issue 50, which I think is around Christmas, Thanksgiving, Christmas, it's going to be an 80s movie spectacular. So if you'd like to join in and do a few pages, like I'm going to do the Dark Crystal. I just want to draw some Skeksis and maybe some the old masters or whatever. I think that would be super fun. I mean, I may get sued, but whatever. If they want to sue us, they'll sue me. I don't think they will.
I would love to take part. That would be awesome.
That'd be great. Anybody that wants to take part, just message me on Instagram. We have a bunch of other artists that are talking about this. Somebody's talking about doing Gremlin. Somebody's already talking about doing a Crawl. At first I was like, I'm going to, mark down what everybody's doing. But, if we have 2 Dark Crystals, if we have 2 Blade Runners, if we have, whatever, 2 or 3, whatever, it's an 80s movie spectacular. So, anybody can do whatever they want as long as it's 80 movies genre, really.
That sounds fun. And, I'd also like to just promote your YouTube channel. So there's very few channels out there that you have people going through indie books and walking through and highlighting the kinds of books that you and I love, and I know many people who watch my channel love. And I was telling you right before we push record, you're kind of like my morning cup of coffee. When I get my morning cup of coffee, I sit down to get to work, and I usually have your channel seeing because you post very regularly. So
3 times a week minimum.
Yeah. So, and I really appreciate your walkthroughs and insights, and you're always promoting random access and other things on there as well. So, you don't lie when you say you like to promote other creators. I mean, you will highlight other people, and I really appreciate the community that you're building, man.
One of the things about starting the YouTube channel, and I hope you start yours too, because like you, I was checking out your YouTube videos and going and looking back, and I understand why you stopped, and I hope you go back into it because it's fantastic to watch. I started that because Cartoonist Kayfabe didn't. It seemed like they were always doing the same. They were always going over Frank Miller or Watchmen, or they didn't go into Hate or Yummy Fur or some of these other things, and some of the Power Comic stuff. Like you said, the Power Comic channel kind of went defunct a little bit. Not entirely sure why. I mean, I know that Evan is super busy. He's like got this whole wrestling. He's a real TV producer, so I can understand why he's too busy for that. And he's also got his movie channel. But just the fact that there's all of these comic books, I could never cover all of the comic books that I want to cover in my lifetime ever. I mean, there's just too much, good and bad. I try not to say bad ever, but sometimes you got to say it. Sometimes you got to say it.
Well, that's the kind of stuff that I liked to highlight, and you like to highlight too, of just like, you can go anywhere and find mainstream stuff. I'm looking for things I've never seen before. I'm looking for things that are unique. And sometimes there's duds, but also, I mean, there's so much out there. So I mean, I'm going to try to get back into it, but I mean, you're carrying the torch right now.
Oh, you really should.
So everybody go check out Alex, please.
It was fantastic when you were doing your Warlock 5 reviews, and I was doing my Warlock 5 just to see what how the differences were, because there's just so much you could say about, especially those books. But I mean, that's just one example of so much out there, And I really wish the Cartoonist Kayfabe guys had gone into some of these other things instead of just the Wizard magazine image stuff that they kept doing over and over again. Because they had so many great insights. They did. Maybe we'll have to do a collaboration on a book. That would be great. I'd love it.
Sometime there'll be a lot of fun, because I like your insights for sure. Anyway, thanks for joining, man. Really appreciate it. Like I said, everyone, all the links will be in the description. Please go check out Alex's stuff. Please contribute to Morgrim, because I want to see this.
I appreciate it.
So thanks a lot.
You'll get this.
That's right. I want that bus on my desk right here. So, all right. Really appreciate your time. And ladies and gentlemen out there, stay safe and keep it psycho.